Okay. And YouTube, can you have a look to YouTube?
I can.
Est-ce que je laisse activer ou je active le son? Parce que là.
Et ça marche.
Yes, it seems, yes, in the YouTube also in the live. Yes, I can see YouTube. Yes, yes. Yeah, YouTube also working.
Ouais.
Ok. C'est par défaut. C'est vous qui allez.
Je crois, ouais. Enfin, qu'est-ce qu'il y a à faire, hein? Non, je sais. Ah non, ici, non, il ne faudrait pas que ce soit moi. Moi, c'est
Ça, c'est la
YouTube.
personne qui présente.
Ça, c'est la partie de son qui présente. Donc, est-ce que vous pouvez, oui, garder ça? Attendez.
Non, c'est la personne présente, elle fait juste. Enfin,
Zia, vous le faites revenir parce qu'il n'a
Ok,
pas envoyé
je-
sa
je
présentation. Oui, tu dois envoyer sa présentation. Il a envoyé sa présentation. Ah non, il a.
Video.
I think, yeah, I didn't remember. Yeah, you have no slide, you have just a video.
Videos, yes,
Et là, est-ce que vous y voyez, vous, pour brancher ça?
it will not come to YouTube.
Yeah. YouTube.
Yes.
Okay.
The videos.
Yes.
And for others also, Jose and us also from YouTube.
Others, yeah. Normally, I think I have everything on YouTube. I think. I'm going to check.
Parce qu'on va trop allumer pour qu'on continue à voir, mais un peu, oui, je le fais pas mal. Je le fais pas mal.
So hi everyone. So this is not the real opening. Real opening will be tomorrow at 9 at the cinema. So that will be there. But this afternoon we have a preliminary session which is about projects. So first of all, I would like to welcome you all at the conference. So I know that it was a little tricky to come here, but I think it's worth them because it's a very nice place, and I think we are going to have a good conference here. The idea was really to have networking activities and to make the opportunity after those COVID things to be again together, and specifically for the young researcher and PhD student to be able to talk to other people, to seniors. So that was really the idea of this conference, and to be here in this site. So tomorrow I will explain all the thing, and I will thank also all the organizers. They are here around. You have seen all them. I mean, some of them here. But tomorrow we will give a real thanks to them. Just to start, you know that we are doing everything on YouTube as well. So there is a YouTube channel to present Circle, and we have some remote people who register as well. And here we are about 50 attendees. So this afternoon in this session, we have different projects here. So some are physically present and they will present the project here. Other are videos that we are going to show. Okay. So the first presenter is Benjamin Icard, who is going to present the HybriFox project.
Okay, thank you for your invitation. I will present the project HybriFox. So the goal of this project is to help measure fake news and informational vagueness, more precisely the interplay between fake news and vagueness, linguistic vagueness. And the method to do this is to use some hybrid approach between symbolic AI and deep learning. So me, I am Benjamin Icard, but this project is in fact coordinated by Professor Paul Aigret at the Institut Jean Nicot in Paris. And it also includes 3 other partners, IRISA with Vincent Claveau at Rennes, and also 2 companies, one from the civil domain, Mondeca, and another one from the defense domain, Airbus, with Sylvain Gadpaille. But I will present the consortium more precisely later. Okay, what is the context of this project? We have made by some literature the observation that, in fact, false information is estimated to spread 6 times faster than true information. So we cannot use only manual verification techniques to try to spot fake news. So as I said, the aim of this project HybriFox is to contribute to the detection of fake news that are understood as being either false information or also biased or opinionated information. And we want to do so by using innovative AI techniques, and that means by combining 2 types of methods. And in fact, this project HybriFox is a continuation of another project. So HybriFox is some INR project, but it's a continuation of rapid project called Disinformation Identification in Evolving Knowledge Bases. So what do I mean here by innovative techniques? Is that we are trying to develop some hybrid model to help detect fake news that mixes deep learning with some symbolic AI, that is to say, expert roles. And I will present later the scientific and technical background of this project. So based on the former project, this information identification in evolving knowledge bases. So the consortium, so it's labeled as being industrial research, and it includes two laboratories. So Institution ICO, which is a cognitive science laboratory in Paris, at the interface between language and cognition, but also some INRIA laboratory, IRISA. So they are doing computer science, but more precisely AI. But this project has also two kinds of applications. So one kind is civil use case from Mundeka, and another one is a defense use case from Airbus. Okay, and this consortium is strongly complementary. So there is a strong synergy between two laboratories on the one side, so between IRISA and IGN, but also some strong synergy between Mundeka and Airbus. So, as I said, this project is based on another still ongoing project, but which is going to finish soon, which is DIE-KB. And in this project DIE-KB, we at Institution ICO, and in collaboration with Mundeka, we have developed some algorithm called VAGO. And VAGO is an algorithm to measure fakeness and subjectivity in textual documents. And more precisely, VAGO is labeled as being symbolic AI because it is based on a taxonomy of vagueness. So in the back end of VAGO, you have some taxonomy of vague terms, so different categories of vague terms. And based on this taxonomy of vague terms, VAGO uses some rules to ascribe some score of vagueness and of subjectivity to texts. So to be more precise, so in this full taxonomy of vagueness, you have two kinds of subcategories. One is called subjective vagueness, because the vague terms you find in these subcategories are used to convey like opinionated and oriented information. But on the other side, you have another kind of subcategories of vagueness, which is called factual vagueness. And factual vagueness is used to convey more objective information. And in those two subcategories, on the one side, subjective vagueness, on the other side, factual vagueness, we have other kind of categories. So two categories, combinatorial vagueness and degree vagueness, belong to what we call subjective vagueness, because they are kind of adjectives or vague terms that are used to convey opinions. But we distinguish degree vagueness from combinatorial vagueness because in the first case, there are words like all, like and that are used to convey subjective information, but that are not multidimensional. They are one-dimensional. On the contrary, terms in combinatorial vagueness are more prone to subjectivity because they are multidimensional. And in this category, you have a lot of evaluative adjectives like glad, extraordinary, intelligent. So a lot of words. This is for subjective vagueness. On the other side, you have factual vagueness. And in factual vagueness, we cannot find example here, but you have what we call approximation. On approximation vagueness, this is like terms you use to modulate precise expression, but you also have what we call general vagueness. General vagueness is used to provide underspecific information. Okay, just to explain like the broad background behind the algorithm. Okay, so we have the taxonomy. Based on this taxonomy, as I said, we have developed some algorithm. On this algorithm, first detect vagueness in document, in text, and then, based on this detection, provide some measure of vagueness. And more precisely, it first provides a measure of vagueness versus precision to text on the one side, and on the other side, it provides a measure of subjectivity versus factuality, what we call here opinion and subjectivity, to the text. What you have in front of you is some example. So this is a text we have found on social media, and which is like an explicit fake news because it says that you can use boiled garlic water to try to cure COVID. So in red in this document, I have put emphasis on the different vague terms you can find in the VAGO taxonomy. So you enter this text in the window on this website, and then proceed, and you obtain two barometers. One which says that this text is bad, and the other which says that this text is subjective information. And then, so you have those two kind of answers, but you also have some explicit description of those results. So, in fact, we provide a description of the terms that are identified by VAGO to make this classification, those classifications. So, VAGO is some symbolic algorithm for measuring vagueness and subjectivity. And it uses some rules to score vagueness and subjectivity to textual documents. But on some other side, we also know that we can use like deep learning classifier to try to detect fake news. And those classifiers, in contrast to VAGO, they do not use explicit rules, but they use implicit semantic rules. The idea in this ongoing project was to try to compare the results of vagueness and subjectivity of VAGO on text with the classification of those texts as being either legitimate documents or fake news by some deep learning classifier. So in a recent publication at the Conférence Fusion, Bélanger and colleagues, we have observed that there was a positive correlation between prediction of fakeness by some classifier developed by Airbus, which was called fake CLF, on the measures provided by VAGO. Okay. Here you have some snapshot of the results. So in fact, we made this comparison of measure from VAGO on with a classifier based on 28,000 documents. So the classifier classified about 23,000 of those documents as being legitimate information, and about 5,000 documents as being biased information. So the classification was binary. On what you have on the y-axis is that you have the measure of VAGO on each of those 28,000 documents. So each point here represents one of those 28,000 documents. On the relevant information here, you see that the mean of vagueness in bias documents is a bit higher in case of the bias document than in case of the legitimate document. So if you measure vagueness in all those 28,000 documents, what you observe is that when the text is classified as being biased or fake news, like the ratio of subjectivity or vagueness you obtain is higher than when you look at the same measure in case of legitimate documents. So this was the first results. Here we have Pearson correlation of 0.27. It's quite low, but in fact we have like some large effect size because of those 28,000 documents. So those results were quite promising. So we wanted to go further into those analyses. And we made two observations by comparing this kind of approaches. First, there are some limits in neural networks because working of BERT classifier, for instance, is opaque, and this is an issue of explainability. But also, this is another issue which has not received a lot of attention, is that the capacity of classifier to prevent adversarial learning has not received a lot of attention in the literature. So these are the well-known issues of neural networks, but there are also issues concerning our symbolic approach. The database of terms we have used is quite limited. We have only about 1,600 terms, and they are mainly adjectives. So what we want to do is to try to expand this database to include other kind of lexical categories. So the database is limited in terms of items, but it is also limited because it only measures vagueness, and more precisely subjective vagueness on documents. So we do not measure precision. And what we want to do in the future is to try to integrate some measure of precision in order to modulate our scores and to obtain more fine scores. And what we also want to do is to see whether there are also other kinds of predictors to say that some information is fakeness on top of vagueness and subjectivity. So, okay, the idea in this project is to combine those two kinds of approach to realize some hybridization of those approach in order to benefit from to provide mutual benefit to those two approaches. So more precisely, we want to make what we call late fusion. That is to say, to make the same analysis we have made before in the preceding project, but with a new kind of classifier, with the BERT classifier. We want to combine the results of WAGO and of the new classifier on new data set to see how both of these approach can enrich each other. And in case of WAGO, the classifier will help to identify other kind of terms to add to the database in particular. And in case of the classifier, WAGO will help try to see more clearly into the working of the classifier. This is late fusion, but a more ambitious project is to try to achieve early fusion. And that is to say to constrain like the attention mechanism in BERT to look more precisely, at the context in which the terms from the WAGO database appears in sentences. So we want to say to the classifier, look at these specific words from the WAGO database we know that are associated to potential fakeness or potential deception. Okay, thank you.
Comments? I have one general question. What is the link between vagueness and fake news that you are making?
Okay, this is a very good question. We are not saying that in case you have some vague information, you can make the inference that this information is false. We are not making this big claim, but we say that a subcategory of vagueness, we call subjective vagueness, can be some potential cue, some indicators that the information is false. So we are specifically looking at the correlation between the subcase of subjective vagueness and the biased character of a document. But we are not saying, okay, if you have a vague text, you can say that the text is false.
Okay. And you are going to use lexicons or not?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you have already the lexicons that you use in the previous project?
Yeah, exactly. And we are also trying to create a big database of many kinds of lexicon in order to increase genericity of the approach we want to develop.
Okay. Yeah.
And how do you manage to create a database?
You mean the database of WAGO?
Yes.
Okay, so at the beginning, Okay, I did not enter in all the details, but at the beginning we had some very minimal taxonomy of vagueness. So 4 categories, 2 kind of factual vagueness, approximation and generality, and 2 kind of subjective vagueness, degree vagueness, and material vagueness. And we have approximately like 20 terms. And then by using a synonymy or by using, like, we have a lot of linguistic tests to say whether some words belong to each of those different categories. We progressively enrich this typology to create a database.
Yeah.
This of the verb fusion, how do you intend to constrain the attention?
Okay. We have not, we are still trying to think about this. On me, I am not like specialized into this. I am mostly working in on language and cognition, but we are trying to see which kind of classification bear those on the data set, either legitimate or biased. And then we want to see through regression to see on which kind of words, based on which kind of words bear does this classification. Then we will identify some words and we will compare those words identified through the regression with our VAGO database. And then we will try to mix this to obtain better results.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the second presentation is, so you are going to be 2 to present, yeah. So Marc Bertin and Yuton Fei. Let me check that. Je sais pas comment on fait pour montrer plein écran. And so the project is Theosite. I don't know how to do.
Yeah, site. Merci. So, hi, my name is Marc Bertin. I'm a PI of the project Theosite. So I want to introduce today about citation context. Our purpose is to construct the semantic relation indicators from scientific literatures. So we have 2 points to develop. The first one is about the context of this project, Theosite. So, as you know, everybody else publish, and when you publish, you have some rule to respect to have a good article. So you have an introduction, you have method, you have result, you have discussion, and the way you mobilize the citations. So it's not so simple. In fact, we have studied this distribution of citation through scientific article, and we have shown several years ago what this distribution following this kind of patterns. So problem is today that we have to explore the context of citation. It means, why are you citing some people? So this is a nice question. So yes, so is it for his result, is a method, is a definition, or something like that? So maybe it's positive, sometimes it could be in a negative way. So we want to explain, we try to categorize, in fact, this context. So this is a representation, this is a map of how linguistic context of citation work according to the IMRAD structure. I mean, introduction in red, and you have a method in yellow, result in green, and discussion in blue. And you have the verb here, according from document to word. And in this part, you have the context of the verb. And it means if you only deal with the verb, it's not enough, of course. Because if you look here, you have observed, so you can observe something, or we did not observe something. So you have to explore the context of citations. So this is a part of past work using some grammars, basal approach, expert system, and it's work not so bad, but it's a starting point our project. This is a synthesis of our last work. So we show some distribution, some context, we use some factorial analysis. In many ways, we try to understand how everything about citation in scientific papers work. So the question now is, what is the purpose? Purpose is about, of course, bibliometrics. Bibliometrics, I don't know if you know the definition of bibliometrics. I give you some ones. There are several definitions because from Richards. So this is the application of mathematical and statistical method to book and other media of communication. It's a quantitative study of literature, the same as reflecting bibliography from Mike Kane. So everywhere there's lots of definition in bibliometrics. But anyway, when you deal with bibliometrics, it means you deal with bibliography. So the question now is, if you want to explore bibliography, for example, you can go in the Web of Science, you write bibliographics in the Web of Science, and you have approximately 8,000 results. So this result could be in several languages. I mean, this kind of problem, you publish, of course, in English, but sometimes there is not only English in publication now, today. So, of course, there is English, but there are also Spanish, Portuguese, Russian, German, French. And when you start to deal with scientific papers and you are looking for some relevant information, sometimes you have to switch from language to another language. So if you, today, with publishing, a lot, and I mean a lot is a lot, indeed. So if you look the scientific publication to the world from country, you know that today it's the Chinese. Chinese is publishing a lot of papers, more than Americans. So if you want to explore the data set from Chinese publication database, and I'm looking for bibliometrics, for example, and I have approximately 22,000 papers in bibliometrics, and in Web of Science, only 8,000. And it means there are approximately 14 people. I can't read because every paper is right in Japanese, in Chinese now. So there are also different projects. In CNCAIS, you have also lots in this database. You can have several papers in several languages too, which are indexed. If you want to deal with another language like French, you have, of course, this project like ISTEXT. So ISTEXT, of course, there are lots in English documents. There are also another language like German, French, Italian. If you want to deal with the social science document in German, you have the project SOAS from the Geist Institute now. And there are lots of tools to explore this kind of data set. So problem now is there are many projects dealing with multi-language documents, and I don't know exactly the date. I don't write it, nothing. Okay, there are some initiative, Helsinki initiative on multilingual scholarly communication, and the purpose is to promote multilingualism in scientific papers now. And 20 days ago, according to the Council of the European Union, there was some link with Helsinki initiative, and now there was lots of development on multilingualism for European academic publications. So this is the context of our project. We want to explore this scientific literature in a multilingual aspect. This project is an ANR project. This is the project we want to describe shortly here. It's a study of citation context for the construction of semantic relational indicators called StereoCite. And there was another project from ICISE in the same way. The purpose is to analyze the structures and dynamics of citation context for better bibliometric indicators from a complex system, Ronald Pan Institute. So this project, ANRs, is in collaboration, of course, with the University of Lyon, with Professor Boukassem Cherifa and Thierry Lafouge, with emeritus professors. There was also collaboration with École des Ponts Paris Tech, with the University of Bourgogne-Franche-Comté, with Yana Tarnosova in natural language processing, with the CNRS, Alain Collignon, researcher engineer from the ISTEX project, and with Philippe Meyers from a Geist Institute for the database in German. And now we have also in your team Fei Yu Tong, a PhD student about this project, and she will present this project.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Yutong Fei. I'm a first-year PhD student, and I'm going to present our project ANR. So, understanding citation context and solve the problem in information science, because authors employ citations in multiple ways in order to build a strong and multi-faceted argument. So we don't understand how the authors structure their citations and how this framing affects uptake by scholars and future citers. So the objective of our project is to develop a typology of citation context in order to better explain citation behaviors and to establish the function basis for the users. And our work will be summarized in the following 3 points. At the level of conceptuality, by making a major contribution to the development of the citation theory, and professionally by proposing a new data set to the scientific community for exploratory purpose of citation, or whether in the domain of scientific technology and medicine, or also in the domain of humanities and social science. And ethically, by preventing the misuse of indicators based on the identification and annotation of semantic relationships. And the complexity of this project requires a transdisciplinary dialogue between electricians, linguists, sociologists, and also computer scientists. And
je sais pas si
Pardon. So if you can speak a little louder, maybe.
okay, can I continue?
Yeah, I guess.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
The epistemology allows for reference shows the complexity of the phenomenon addressed, because citation is an important indicator of the state of the scientific field, and it can be considered as the indicator of social and intellectual pressure and intertextual relationship. And also, citations introduced the bias, for example, in terms of citation impacts or genders, or also language uses in the reference. And we have also the limitations of working on full text, because, for example, the most important question is that how we can find the appropriate information in the full text concerning citation context. It requires some new technology. So for example, the machine learning, natural language processing, and also text menu. And our work will follow the following steps. At first, we will extract the citation context, and then we create a data set of citation context-based scientific articles. Then we will do the linguistic analysis of citation blocks and do the semantic analysis of citation context. In the end, we will apply this corpus in practice in order to test its functionality, especially in terms of the indicators. And then we analyze and think about the ontological and the ethical of this kind of indicators. As I have mentioned, the most important question working on the full text is that how can we find this appropriate information? And one of the solutions is anaphora resolution. Just in this picture, anaphora. This is the output of anaphora resolution because it can help us to find the same reference cited in a paragraph in a limit space of textual space, and then we can limit space of citation context. So that we can extract the citation context, and through analyzing this context, then we can do the semantic annotation, and then we construct the corpus.
Oh yes, we have some example how this kind of application could work. It's mean when you analyze this kind of data set from scientific paper, you can extract relevant information and you just can put some label like method on information or something like that to categorize in fact this relation. But problem now is about etiquette, deontological point of view about which kind of application. For example, I don't know if you know this site, but it's a site.ai. It's a startup, it's a little company. We start to annotate semantically, in fact, this kind of literatures. So, okay, it doesn't work very well because there was only 3 categorizations, and it's not very well done. But no, the problem is not if it could be done, but when it will be done, and how the editor could mobilize this kind of technology, and how the committee about evaluation assurance could be used this kind of technology too. So it's about the question now. So thank you. If you have any question about and want to discuss about this kind of application.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions? Again, I can start. So you presented first of all different sources with different languages, and then the citation problem and so on. So is it that you think that the citation are different in different languages or in different sources, and this is what you want to study, or?
Yes, this is exactly what we want to study. In fact, we use bibliographic and citation, and we don't know exactly how it works because there are so many discussions about that. There is no theory of citation. But if we want to understand there are some cultural and linguistic limitation, we have to deal in a multilingual way. So we have no choice to explore this kind of data set. And the fact is, when we 3 or 4 years ago, we don't talk too much about multilingualism because everybody thinks about, okay, there was only English in science. No, it's not the case because there are some discussion at the political level. There are some database in multilingual. So it's a good thing too, but now we have to deal in a multilingual way. So
yeah, we didn't talk about Russian because Russian also has
not today, but
a lot of publications. They are out of the database is American database is out of a lot of
Yes.
databases.
Absolutely, yes.
Just
That's right.
as for example, just as Mr. Bertin has mentioned, Chinese publication, the number of Chinese publication is very large, but the impact of Chinese scientific is very low in the international world.
For now.
So for now, so this is the bias of language in the terms of citation.
Don't you think as well that sometimes we cite people because we have to cite them? I mean that there are some, yeah, you know that in one domain, this person is very famous, so you are going to cite it anyway. So is it something that you are going to be interested in?
Yes, absolutely. If you look at scientific papers in the introduction, you can cite people because there are a very well known in this field. So you have to cite it because this is a very old stuff, but okay, you have to take a position. And sometimes in method, you can cite people because you want to use either BERT method or séquençage de l'ADN or something like that. So it's depends on your field, but you need to mobilize some method or some result, and you have to compare in the discussion some result, or maybe to opening the new one. So
now we agree that you have to cite some people. Are you going to help writers to say, okay, you are going to publish in this, you have to cite these people?
No, I don't know in this way. Sometimes it could be used to find who is the expert on the domain. Because if you just cite in the introduction, because it's okay in the mainstream of the science, maybe you want to find the people who have developed this kind of method or who have defined this notion or concept. So you have to can use this kind of this annotation to navigate through papers. For example, if you are disagree with someone, it's not mean it's bad work, but there are some controversy. So this is another discussion.
Yep.
In addition to what Christian said about this type of references, sometimes when we submit a paper to a journal, the reviewer says that it would be very good if you cite this reference. And sometimes when you read this reference, you see that there is no relation with your paper. But it's kind of, can you add this reference to your paper in order to be accepted? Are you going to detect these kind of references and you say, okay, this is junk reference?
I don't think so, because this kind of problem is about reviewers. It's about the journal deal with the reviewers and how the ethic of the reviewer. Of course, sometimes reviewers could tell you you have to cite this colleague or this work because it's a very important work, but not so important according to your paper. So I think I'm not sure we can detect this kind of thing. But this is a problem about evaluation and about referee. Yes.
Also, there is also a problem, I think, that maybe you should try to detect. Is the fact when there is a group of researchers who cite them simultaneously, and then you know what that means. That could be very interesting to detect that and to detect this type of networks and say, okay, this is not very fair, you know.
You're absolutely right. In fact, I didn't mention it, but when you put some label, in fact, you can establish a relation between paper, a semantic relation. So there are two ways. We don't want to build some indicators in a quantitative way. I think if there are the three papers and with positive citation, it's good, and if there are 7 papers with negative citation, it's wrong. It's not in this way we have to deal with kind of limitation. We have to deal with at the network level. I mean, you have a network, and this, according to this network, you can have some label, oriented graph with some semantic annotation. And this kind of notation could be very useful to detect a clique or community or something like that in a semantic way. So yes, it could be done with this kind of tool. Yes.
And the last question is, the success of this project is based, I think, on the annotated collection that you're going to create. How do you plan to do that? Because I think it's a very difficult task.
Yes, it's a very difficult task, and we several years ago we participated to SEMPUB challenge, and we succeeded to annotate in fact during the VV challenge. And another way where also some ontology we can use, for example, CITO. This is an ontology about a citation ontology with some categorization, and we can just deal with kind of ontology. Of course, we have to extend a little bit this one because it's not perfect one, our point of view, of course. But anyway, after we can populate this kind of ontology, and it could be very useful for a deep learning approach. Yes. So you can produce some data set which could be used. Yes. Next way.
Any other comment? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And tell you for the reviewers and for the journals, what I do now is I send back the hot potato to the editor, and I say, okay, I'm asked to add this reference. I think it's nothing to do with my paper. If you think that I should add it, tell me. Otherwise, I will not. So this is, yeah, because it's completely unfair to have this kind of comments and. So because I have the floor, I'm going to present you shortly a European project, which is called IneoSpace PhD. And the target is to help PhD students in different trainings. So we started from the idea that Earth observation is something that is going to be very useful in many different domains. For climate change to agriculture, water monitoring, and many other applications. And we also know that there is a little number of people who know the techniques on how to use Earth observation and for this type of application. So this is one step. And the other one is regarding entrepreneurship. We also did think that PhD students should have a spirit of entrepreneur, not only for their work during their PhD, but also after the PhD. We think that also for young researcher or researchers, a project is like a company. When you need to find money for a project, you need to find resources for a project. So this is really the same type of skills that you need when you want to be an entrepreneur or when you want to be a researcher nowadays. And so in this project, we developed different activities to help those PhD students. For that, we had two schools. So those were summer schools on artificial intelligence, deep learning that we applied on Earth observation data. But of course, you know that those techniques are nowadays applied to different domains. And we also had what we call the StarTech, where the student can put themselves as be like in the shoes of an entrepreneur. For this StarTech, what we had some people, some experts of the domain. We had some entrepreneurs themselves and some teachers. And we developed an idea during 1 week. The students came and had no idea of what they were going to develop. And after a while, little by little, they develop all the steps that you need to go through when you want to become an entrepreneur. So from these 2 physical schools, so the summer school on artificial intelligence and Earth observation and the StarTech program, we did also 2 SPOCs. So SPOCs are like MOOC, but they are for specialized people and for very deep training, I would say. And those 2 SPOCs are now running. And we will have our first use of the SPOC next July in artificial intelligence and Earth observation using those SPOCs. And we have also this StarTech using the SPOC. So maybe you will heard again about them in social media because we have also a new project following this one, also H2020, where we want to use artificial intelligence for agriculture domain, for which we are going to work on different topics in collaboration with Romania and Italy, University of Rome and University of Brasov for Romania. So this is all what I wanted to tell you. If you have any question, please do not hesitate. I didn't want to go deep in the detail of the project, but if no, then I'm going the floor to. So now it's going to be a little more tricky because we have now the YouTube channel that I have to start. So this is here. YouTube channel. I think that I have to go there. The playlist. I think it's there. This is one, and I have to share the screen. And why don't we? So you are talking on each.
Yes.
I don't know how to stop that. Okay, now it is stopped, and we need some sound, right? Where is it? Sorry about that. We need some. Here and here. Okay, the ones I go there. C'est dommage, je me laisse partir là, Wait. So, on va partager celui-là plutôt. So, j'arrête de le partager. Partager ici. Sorry, partager. We have too many systems here. What should I do?
Share first time.
Yeah, but if I share, then this is this computer, which is the first one. So that means that the sound is here, not here.
You can I stop this one, no? Maybe I stop this one.
Ah, and then we put it here. But I need my adapter. 2 seconds. I should go ahead, change the. Very next one. I need the adapter. Remove that. Plug in on my computer, but I need an adapter for that. Anyone has an adapter? Maybe you will be faster to find one. USB-C to USB 5 to USB-C. I got it. I was first. The thing that